Beyond the Waves is a Hail Hail Media production. It may contain sweary words, and adult situations may be discussed. If you're in the company of underage temps, turn off the show now and listen back later. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, email us at beyondthewaves67@gmail.com. You can also find us on Twitter at BTW Celtic Show, or you can join our group on Facebook at Beyond the Waves. Hail hail, and keep the faith.
The time comes that you're no longer there. Fall down to my knees, begin my nightmare. Words spill from my drunken mouth, I just can't keep them all in. I keep up with the racing rats and do my best to win. Go outside yet, it's not your time to play. Standing at the edge of your town with the skyline in your eyes, reaching up to God, the sun says it's goodbyes. If a plane were to fall from the sky, how big a hole surface of the Let's pretend we never met. Let's pretend we're on our own. We'll live different lives until our cover's blown. I'll push my hand up to the sky, shade my eyes from the sun. As the dust settles around me, suddenly nighttime has begun. If a plane were to fall from the sky, how big a hole would it leave in the surface of the earth? The surface of the earth. Come on now, you knew you were lost, but you carried on anyway. Oh, come on now, you knew you had no time, but you let the day drift away.
you grow, don't realize that everything ain't black and white, it's brown. Oh Lord, you light a bright sun and every day is the same. It's a long way to paradise from here. It's a long way to paradise from here. Every week you stand in line, you queue to put your name upon the form. And every week they have devised another way of making you feel small. Oh Lord, life runs home, you're not living at all. It's a long way to paradise from here. It's a long way to paradise from here.
Welcome to the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. My name is Graham Wilson. No Rev today. I don't know what he's doing. So important. All I know is I got a tweet from him at 5 a.m. saying he's sorry. He missed the game. And, well, anyway. Sleeping through the game. I thought that was only something that Paul from Drum Chapel was doing. I guess it's catching on. It's contagious. Everybody's doing it. Well, fortunately, we got a better result this week. In the end. Didn't look so good there in the front end, but they were able to see it out. And as I've said a couple of times, as Lee McCulloch would say, it was a nice 3 points. Idiot. Not only is he not a crafty footballer, he's just an idiot. But, well, I'm sure he's glad that he stuck it out with Savko. Anyway, not even a second thought about them. Burn out. You're listening to the Beyond the Waves Celtic Football Show. Again, my name is Graham Wilson. I'm on my own today. The Rev is not going to be joining us, but we have two great guests lined up. First off, we're going to be joined at 1:15, just 5 minutes from now, by Jillian Lindsay of the Kano Foundation. She's going to tell us a little bit about an event that they have coming up on the day of the Juventus tie, February 12th, which I will be in Glasgow for. I will be at the game. I absolutely cannot wait. There is absolutely nothing on the face of the earth that could get me to get on one of those tiny little propeller planes other than this game. Otherwise, no chance. I don't care what it is. But I will make the exception with this. But any feedback you have in terms of coping with flying, any kind words, please, I'm open. I need it. Because, there was a time where, I made the reservations and I knew what kind of plane it was going to be. And, I was always nervous about it. And throughout the month of January, it's like, all right, well, I'll just buck up and I'll do it. But this time next week, I'm going to be sitting in the airport getting ready to get on one of those planes, the propeller, right next to the window, 9 rows, et cetera, et cetera. I know everybody's like, oh, you poor thing. I'm terrified. I'm really scared. But I'm going to do it, and I'm going to make it over. So, at any rate, Jillian Lindsay joining us. Tell us about their event that is going to benefit. It's in the Barras the entire day before and after the game against Juventus, where we are going to gug them. And we're also going to be joined by Paul Larkin, the Green and White writer, at top of the hour, 6 o'clock. And he's going to tell us about his upcoming book launch, another Bam Pop book launch. It's going to be fantastic. I wish I could come back over for that. Who knows? Maybe I'll sneak back over. But we're going to hear from Paul, catch up with him a little bit, get his thoughts on the game today. Wasn't a thing of beauty, that is for sure. And we'll also hear the latest on how his book is rounding up. Going to be released here, in a couple of months' time. So always good to catch up with him. But my thoughts on the game, that pitch was just atrocious. I mean, you can't even really call it a heavy pitch. It was a mud pit, nothing less. And I was happy that Tony Watt got a run out up top with Gary Hooper. I thought that was a good outlet. We're playing more of a traditional 4-4-2, which is that lopsided Chris Commons playing on either side and then sort of drifting more centrally to try and link things up. But there was no link up. Everything seemed disjointed, and I can't fault the players too much. First off, you're just trying to keep your footing, full stop. I mean, there were several instances where players on both sides would kick the ball and then just fall because there's just no footing to be had. I haven't seen divots that big since Lee Trevino was at Marion. No, it's. I thought Adam Matthews on the one side was sublime at times. I mean, some of the passes that he was able to pick out down the flanks that opened up opportunities to whip the ball in, and unfortunately we couldn't find the Celtic player on the end of them, but he's just continuing his brilliant form as of late, kicking on from his performance midweek. 2 goals. What a strike ratio on that boy right there. But Charlie Mulgrew, on the left-hand side, was not one of his best games. Yes, I know he scored the goal, and many folks feel as though if you score a goal that eliminates all ills from the rest of the game, but I thought that at many times it was just a continuation of last week, especially for him. I think he's one of these players that feels undroppable, and their head is not quite in the right place in terms of hunger, in terms of getting it done. We don't have much of a choice at this point because of Izzy's injury, and the fact that Gershon hasn't even made it into the team in the past couple of games is a bit concerning for me. Lets me know that he's not turning many heads at training. So much so that he's not even getting a look. And, that's a developing issue. We'll have to wait and see in terms of what sort of impact, if any, he's going to make in this side. There were some question marks with him coming in. He did play the bounce game or the U20 game at Fur Hill, and many people had raving reviews about him in his performance from that game, but haven't really heard much from him since. A lot of football left to be played, but, we saw midweek there Georgie Samaras, and I've been saying this, maybe it's time to give him a bit of a break. He's played so much football, it's a bit risky, and yes, the counterpoint to that was he's had a nice run of form as of late, and we don't want to stop that and drain his confidence. Well, let's be honest, he had a couple of stinkers running into that game on Wednesday, and he was continuing on from that in the first 30 minutes while he was on the pitch before he was taken off with the hamstring strain. I probably would have sat him. I would have sat him at Hampden because he's never really had a huge impact at Hampden. Certainly would have sat him on Wednesday, but he's going to be very, very dearly missed in that Juventus tie. But we will we'll break all that apart. I mean, we have plenty of time. We will be on the air next Saturday after the Inverness Cali game, and then I am going to Scotland. So more details to follow from that, but let's see if we can get in touch with Jillian here and get her on the show, get her thoughts, and give us some information on that event that I was speaking about. Really looking forward to it. We don't have enough of the ladies calling into the show. We don't talk to enough of the ladies, so we need to do a better job of that. And I'm delighted that hopefully we'll have the opportunity to open that up today.
Hello.
Hi, Jillian.
Hiya.
It's Graham from Beyond the Waves. How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. I just wanted to touch base with you and hear about, first off, the event that you have coming up. I know there's a lot of excitement, a lot of planning going on at this moment, and I want to give the listeners all the details and just a bit of background on that. But first off, let's hear from you. Let's get to know you a little bit, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine.
Fantastic. What's your background? Did you come from like a family of Celtic supporters, and do you remember as a child going to Celtic Park and passion sort of building on from there?
My 2 brothers actually played for Celtic when they were younger in the youth academy.
Oh, fantastic.
That Tommy Bunn set up, so that's how we really got introduced to Celtic, because my dad's the kind of man that he didn't really give us a team to support. The choice was ours. So we grew up with the choice of whoever you support, that's your choice.
Yeah.
We didn't really get to go to Celtic games when we were younger because we couldn't really afford it.
Oh, I see.
So the first time I was at a Celtic game, I think I was about 19, 20. So about 6-7 years ago.
I see.
But yes, they are all Celtic supporters of their own choice. So that's really how we got into being Celtic supporters and things like that. So
fantastic. And your brothers, growing up in the academy and through Tommy Burns and all that. I mean, it's in a sense, you can almost say it's in your DNA. To a certain point.
Yeah,
That's fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah, we've grew up with it. Grew up around football. Grew up around sport in general, but I'm more of a watcher rather than a doer. So
Me too.
going to watch them and things like that suit me fine.
Julian, if I try doing anything, I'm at risk to injure myself. So I'm a better watcher, definitely.
Yes, me too. Me too.
Fantastic. Now, tell us, how long have you been involved with the Kano Foundation? How did you come to start working with the Kano Foundation?
I'm actually one of the original group that actually set the Kano Foundation up. So I've been there from day dot. Basically, that's us in our third season, so I've been there from the beginning, and I basically got involved with it through John Paul. I worked with John Paul in the company that I'm in just now, and he was aware of the fundraising and the organisational stuff I'd done during my work. He came up with the general idea of it, gave me the idea, and it was kind of hard to refuse from there. And since then, it's just been a whirlwind of what we've done and how we've carried on from there. So.
Brilliant.
That's basically the gist of it.
That's brilliant. And for some of the listeners who, obviously, most Celtic supporters are going to know of the great work that you've done over the past several years. I mean, you have a reach that's really just gone from strength to strength. But for maybe some of the new listeners or the newer Celtic supporters who are tuning in who may not be familiar with the Kano Foundation, just give us a brief synopsis of what you do and where your work lies.
Basically, what the Kano Foundation does is secure the next generation at Celtic Park. We take groups of around 50 kids each home game to Celtic Park free of charge for them to get basically a match day experience at Celtic Park, and it's kids that have come from deprived and deserving backgrounds. So it's mostly kids' first experiences going, because like me, they can't afford to go and when they're younger, their parents, whatever, can't afford it.
Right.
So most of these kids are getting it for the first time. So they're walking into Parkhead and they're mesmerised by it, basically.
That's brilliant. And it really kicks on from the founding mission, in a sense that Brother Walfrid, started in terms of a charitable entity. Yeah, and that's just absolutely brilliant. I mean, just contributing to underprivileged children and giving them, sustenance and even more so an experience that they otherwise might not have had an opportunity to do, and that's just fantastic.
Thank you.
Has there ever? Tell me this. What's been, obviously you come into contact with many children and get to witness and experience through their eyes, in a sense, countless times. I mean, has there ever been an instance that really just stood out to you or just really stuck in? I mean, is it just like every time that, you're out and you see the kids at Celtic Park and, the impact that you're making on them, or has there ever been like one situation that really stood out in your mind that really was more so gratifying, I guess?
I wouldn't say there's like one unique one, because every single child that we've took has been individual in their own right, and every single one of them, you can see the expression in their face. You can't put any words, the look in their faces when you see them sitting in the middle of the Green Brigade at their right hand side, the away fans at their left hand side, and the football playing right in front of them. Nothing can explain it's just unbelievable, the look in the kids' faces, and you can see the excitement in them. They're joining in, they're having fun every single time. You can't put any words. You just cannot put any words. The kids that just enjoy themselves. It's every single time.
That's fantastic. I mean, I can't help but smile when I hear about that. Because you can see that, you can picture it, and it's phenomenal. That's something that I think is just another example of what sets Celtic apart from any other club, and it's magic, and anything that can propel your efforts forward, especially going out to the listeners, if you're listening in and you want to find out more about the Kano Foundation and make a donation or see how you can assist, and the website is thekanofoundation.com, is it?
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Fantastic. Now, since you were there from the beginning, since its start up until this point. I mean, it's been 2-3 years since.
That's us into our third season. Fourth season should hopefully, fingers crossed, be next year.
Fantastic. How far has it come? Like, considering its size and reach today, in terms or in comparison, I guess, from when it started. How much has it grown? In that time, since when you started. And then, until now, I mean, you're also going to different clubs, is that right?
It would be a thought to go to different clubs and venture into that, but right now our main focus is Celtic Park because that's where it's the grassroots have came from. I think basically from the start to now, I think our biggest achievement just within the group is actually getting charitable status. So we're not just a group of volunteers doing this for the sake of doing it. We're doing something that's hopefully going to be a foundation for something that's going to carry on and grow and expand in whatever way that happens down the line. We haven't really thought about that. The main focus is Celtic Park for our kids, securing the next round of generation at Celtic Park. But as much as we're out there and we're on like the podcast with yourself and we're doing like the Facebook and the Twitter and things like that, it's regrettable to see after our third season we still get people asking, whose is that flag hanging in the stadium? Whose are the kids standing at the Janefield entrance? We're not really having the impact that you'd expect from, we are the only group that do this within Celtic Park, within any club in the SPL, and we're still 3 seasons later regrettably saying that people do not know who we are fully. And it's quite, I mean, there must be a link that we're missing somewhere, some publicity stunt or something that we're not doing right that we could put, like, we could gain on. But really, hopefully going forward, we will get the full of Celtic supporters from every corner of the stadium, every corner of the world, basically knowing about us, and that's, I think, what's going to be our key aim before we think about expanding anywhere else, just to make sure that every Celtic supporter, young, old, indifferent, know about us.
Absolutely. Hopefully the media opportunity, or I guess the springboard, is going to be coming on and talking to a daft American who has a radio show, and hopefully we can get the message out to as many people as possible to let them know, not just like you said, the flag that's in the stadium or in the entrance, but what it is exactly that you do, on a week by week basis, and how everyone can get involved. It's very simple. When you visit the website, there's a donate button. You can donate, and then as well, I have several of the Kano Foundation badges, which I love. They go on my scarf, and it's. I'm sort of a badge geek. I'll be honest with you. And then when you go on the message boards or Twitter, it's oh, that's a nice badge. I like that. So it does have a cachet to it. You can find the badges on theKanoFoundation.com, and it's a wonderful cause that you can support and get behind. And it's heartwarming stuff. I mean, as it's going through the chat room right now, we're getting some good feedback. Tell us about the event that you have coming up on February 12th. That hopefully I'm going to be attending. I'm really looking forward to this. It's in the Barras. Tell us, the sort of specifics there, the whens and the wheres, and how everybody can get involved.
Okay, the event on the 12th is basically a pre-party for the Juventus game. It kicks off in the Barrowlands Art and Design Centre. It's just literally behind the Barrowlands, and it's free from 2 till 6. The advance tickets on sale just now for £6 at Ticket Scotland, and that'll guarantee you entry. They have been going like wildfire, so if you do want to come along, I would advise you to get your hands on one as soon as possible. If you don't get lucky enough to get a ticket, then it's £10 after the game, but we can't guarantee entry after that, so we are advising people to get online, get a ticket, or come along from the very beginning if you're not one of the lucky ones to actually be going to Parkhead to watch the game.
You heard it.
It's a family-friendly environment, which will be, the kids are all welcome. Kids are welcome until the final whistle of the game and due to licensing laws, etc. They would have to leave after that. But we have like face painters, a caricaturist, Irish dancers, traditional folk music. We've got band coming on before and after the game. The band that's coming on is the Wakes after it.
Oh, brilliant.
So we've got numerous things going on during the day, but the main thing is it's by the fans, for the fans, and 2 local charities are going to benefit from it. One being ourselves, Kano Foundation, and the other one being the Toppy Burns Skin Cancer Trust. So it's local, it's Carlton boys basically, and any money that's raised on the night will go to these 2 charities. So not only are the fans having a party, they're also helping the 2 local charities that are round about the area.
That's brilliant. You heard it right there. The tickets are going fast. If you're listening in, you haven't heard about it. If you haven't heard about it and you're just hearing and you want to get involved, definitely get in touch. You can find the details on the KanoFoundation.com website.
Yes, they'll be on that shortly. And there's also a Twitter page and a Facebook page for the Celtic Fans Party. Okay.
What is the Twitter the Twitter address for the party itself? Because I've
it's at Celtic Fans Party.
at Celtic Fans Party. So get on Twitter, add them. You'll have all the information that you need there. Get the ticket. Check it out. It's going to be great. Just behind the Barrelance, just like you heard right there. Jillian, thank you so much for joining us today.
No
keep
problem.
keep up the great work and everything that you're doing with the Kano Foundation. It's really just phenomenal. And let us know. I mean, would it be okay if we checked in with you, maybe in a couple of months and just to check in and hear about any the latest goings on with the Kano Foundation, because I want to keep this in the forefront. Okay, fantastic. That's brilliant. Jillian, thank you so much.
Great.
And
thanks, Graham.
And we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Great. Thanks. Bye.
That's Jillian Lindsay of the Kano Foundation. She's absolutely brilliant. She was excellent. We need more women to call into the show, but especially with the efforts that she's putting forth with such a phenomenal cause, and it just makes you proud to be a Celtic supporter and proud to be involved with that. The badges are absolutely brilliant. If you're a badge geek like me, you can check out thekanofoundation.com, get their badges, put it on your scarf, your hat, whatever you do with your badges, and it's going to a good cause. So Jillian was brilliant, very well spoken, and great cause there as well. So we'll be checking in with her soon. Hopefully I will be at that party, Celtic Fans Party on Twitter. Check them out. Twitter's become a bit of a minefield lately. But I even got into it with the gaffer this week. Sorry, not having the rev. It's like not having my crutches. I had to wet my whistle. I got into it with the gaffer a little bit. Obviously coming off of the loss last week, and I don't want to dwell on this, but Neil Lennon came out and responded to some of the bad press that he got, specifically to Murdo McLeod's article in the Daily Filth. And I thought he was right in doing that. I thought it was well within his bounds to respond and to put the author in their place. Because the comments are just so mismatched, and it's so obvious that they're writing this to get a reaction. But the thing that I took issue with, I guess, or that I sort of had an issue with. After the game on Wednesday, brilliant performance, right? Comes back, and then, he's still harking on. He's still making references to it. It's like, okay, you responded once, but if you're going to keep it going, you're giving them the oxygen that they are desperate for. Let's just move on. Let's just get past it. So, I read a blog on Twitter. I guess it was filtered through on Twitter, but it was a blog from, I think it was just the Celtic blog or something or other. And, I read through things that I don't agree with, things that I agree with, just the same. It's all interesting. It's all about Celtic. And, this article, and I'm not even going to pun it. I can't even remember who, had wrote it. I don't think it's a fan of the show. We'll just put it that way. Where basically the thesis of this article, of this blog, was that Neil Lennon should not respond to any of the negative comments. He shouldn't be on Twitter. He's getting this image like he's a hothead again, and then he brought it up again in the press conference, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I retweeted that, and I said, this is interesting. It's an interesting take. I don't agree with everything. And then I was very inartful in my comments in the retweet. Now, I never would think that Neil Lennon's not following me. I would never think that he's going to see my tweet. Who the hell am I? But I put in there, Lenny needs to give it a rest. And what I meant by that was, you responded to it, which you're very rightfully to, within your bounds to do. But let's move on now. We're just going to retread this over and over again. Well, I understand why it was taken the wrong way, and it was inartful. I will say that. But Neil Lennon, your response to me, I'm driving down the road and I see a tweet come up on my iPad at official Neil. Says, give what arrest exactly? Dun dun dun. It was like, oh, we struck. I don't know how he was Twitter stalking me. He must have just typed in Neil Lennon and Celtic and that came up. But it was completely out of context. And of course, then you get the sort of snipers on Twitter that come in and say, oh, backtracking, blah blah blah. It's like I said, it was inartful. at the time. I probably would have worded it differently, but Twitter it's an imperfect medium. You only get 150 characters, and sometimes you don't have the space to really clarify what you mean, and it's very easy for things to be taken out of context. But I wasn't uncivil at all. Explain my take on it, and I think obviously I think I have a point. We're in a great place right now. We're going into the last 16 of the Champions League, and why do we need to continue to sort of rake the bottom of the pile of leaves, of all the dust and mildew and just junk? That's where all the maggots are. That's where these authors are. I don't care if he's a former Celtic player or whatever. Who cares? John Hartson. Who cares? It's not Murdo McLeod, PhD. It's not John Hartson, the rocket scientist. These are guys that are trying to eke out a career by winding up anybody currently involved with Celtic. So don't give them the oxygen. That was my only point. But today, a couple of great goals. It was great to see James Forrest back. I'm not sure if on that pitch today I would put out a player that is struggling with hamstring injuries. I think that was probably maybe a bit ill-advised. If I'm Jamesy, I might be trying to take care as well. Maybe not going full bore at all times. It looked like he did, though. It looked like he wanted to be out there getting right after. It looked like he's bulked up. We've seen that in the media in a couple of different instances where he's done a lot of weight training in this sort of rehab, and his upper body strength is there to be seen. I loved seeing Tony Watts start, and he has that ability to use his strength to get past defenders. We've seen in his past couple of appearances, and even though he doesn't have, I don't think he quite has the pace that maybe a James Forrest does, especially that initial burst of pace, the first 10 to 15 minutes. He does make up for that with his strength, and that obviously opens up opportunities. Going down to the byline, whipping it in. Some of his service was actually quite good, and it's all speed ahead with him. Charlie Mulgrew on the left-hand side, we were just starting to get into it. I don't think it was his best game by a long shot. Some of his passing was suspect at best. Obviously, you can blame the pitch to a large extent, really, but a lot of its decision making, a lot of its sort of effort, in my mind, and positioning. And let's be honest, the reason why Charlie Mulgrew tends to feature better on the left hand side of midfield, going up against some of these European sides, or at center half, is because if you take him to the right, he is ripe for getting skinned. And we saw that on display a couple of times today, but certainly last Sunday. Anytime you take him, there are players who, every player has a stronger foot, but when your stronger foot is your only foot, it leads to problems. It's very easy to get found out, and I think we're seeing that to a large extent. Joe Ledley's another one where if Joe Ledley, especially in that 2-week break, that we had down in Spain and otherwise, I know Joe Ledley was coming back from injury, but that would be a perfect opportunity. I would find Joe Ledley 100 pounds every time he touched the ball with his left foot. You are not allowed to touch the ball with your left foot. He needs to get better going to the right and opening up that capacity, because otherwise, it just gets narrowed down. It's very easy to predict, and especially on a day like today where the pitch was just a swamp. It was a quagmire. And a lot of that sort of triangular passing, it was on display. We see that no matter what the pitch is, Hampden, Celtic Park, on the road, and then today at a polo ground of a patch. A lot of that triangular passing, and none of it is forward looking. None of it's forward moving. It's back to the left back. You have a forward advancing runner on the left hand side, and then over to the midfielder. But nobody's ever looking up to get the ball up the pitch to the striker. Speaking of which, I thought Gary Hooper at times, his first touch was exceptional. Some of the technique, some of the skill with the ball at his feet back to goal was superb. Probably a bit easier to kill the ball when the pitch is doing a lot of the work for you. But a lot of that dropping back, you can see the advancement there. He's gotten so much better at dropping a bit further deep, holding the ball up, and then waiting for players to advance on. And we had a couple of opportunities to spring out right from there. The penalty that Chris Commons came up with, I thought was, let's just say it was soft. If I'm being honest, it was bad. It was a dive, but we certainly deserve to have at least 2 other penalties. There were handballs in the box like nobody's business, so I'll take it. It was justice, if nothing else. Although we had shouts from the pub when the penalty was awarded, like, no! We don't have anybody that is equipped to take penalties. And, well, anyway, Commons slotted it down the corner and Neil Lennon even referred to it as, that's how he wants penalties to be taken, and I would have to agree. For me at this point, if Chris Commons is on the park, he's taking the penalties. It's good to see Scott Brown come back on, get a bit of playing time. Bram Kyle's yellow card waiting to happen as usual. Certainly wasn't his best game, but we got the win. We're advancing, and we will be moving on to the next round of the Scottish Cup. I believe the draw has been made, and I loved Neil Lennon's response. They asked him who he wanted, and he said he wanted St. Mirren, which I absolutely love. Get a bit of retribution, get a bit of payback there, which I like. I like that tenacity, and to be honest with you, I don't even know who we got. I believe it was at 5:25. So if anybody can get in touch, just let me know who we got in the next round of the Scottish Cup. And still moving forward as she goes for the double. Well, I guess you can also consider the treble with Juventus coming up here as well. Speaking of Twitter, I had a bit of fun with that as well. Friday morning, woke up, and there's all sorts of retweets just absolutely doing my head in, and with this verify thing. Everybody wants to be verified by Twitter with the little blue check. So I think it was like Krajilski on Twitter. Everybody has these daft names that they use on Twitter. Like Paul Larkin referred to it like everybody's afraid of a Cuban assassin coming and taking him out. But Krajilski. So I went through the emoticons, these emoji things, where you can put the frowny face or the smiley face or, all that kind of stuff in your tweets. It's very cute. Well, I went through and I found the green check mark. I was like, oh, that's brilliant. I'll just use the green check mark and then I'll be verified. I'll verify myself. And then all of a sudden you had all these people saying, oh, I need to get the green check marks. It just got absolutely out of hand. It's like, fine, you're verified. You're verified. So next thing you know, everybody's got these green check marks, and of course people are upset. I don't need a green check mark to tell me I'm a Fenian. Well, okay, nobody's saying you do. Just a bit of fun, poking at the people, retweeting all this verified nonsense. We're gonna verify our own. So anyway, you can do that. It's listen, I don't have magical powers that's gonna put a green check mark next to your name in Twitter. Just go download, if you have an iPhone, download the emoji app, and that'll put that little globe on your keyboard. Go in there, search around, you can find the green check mark, it's in one of the menus, and then put it next to your profile name. There, you're done. You're verified. You're a Fenian. Okay? Simple as that. Also, news from Snoop Dogg. Snoop Doggy Dogg is back. Releasing a statement, I believe it was yesterday, saying that he wants to be a mascot for the Juventus game. In the beginning, I was okay with the whole Snoop Dogg thing. It's a bit of fun. He's getting into the game. He wants to get involved, and it was right after the Barcelona tie, so confidence is high, exposure's high, all that kind of stuff. And then you don't hear a peep from him. Snoop Doggy Dogg got a jobby job, and he just disappears. Well, now all of a sudden, a week before the Juventus game, and now all of a sudden he wants to get back involved. Listen, if Snoop Dogg, hear me out. If you're not willing to go to Arbroath, then you don't get to be a mascot. Full stop. I'm not. At first, it was like, okay, if this is genuine, why not? It doesn't seem like it's genuine. If he's only going to turn up for Champions League games, and his interest is only going to be there when the Champions League is going on, then I've got no time. It's just a glory hunter sort of exploitation type deal. It's fun, to send around the pictures of Snoop Dogg wearing the Celtic strip and all that kind of stuff, but. Either you're in and you're committed, or you're not. And my vibe is that he is not committed. So Snoop Dogg, take your ass to the curb, or whatever it is. Charlie McGrew, getting back to him. What's up with his tattoos? It's just, it's disgusting. I don't know what it was. It looked like a burn mark or something. Like, somebody branded him. But it was like blotchy. It was almost like he got ringworm from that disgusting pitch today. But apparently it's a tattoo. I don't know what these players are thinking with their stupid haircuts and the ugly tattoos. It's like sleeving up their arms and stuff. Ugh, it's disgusting. Women, Do you find that attractive? Send us a tweet at BTW Celtics Show. If you think the Travis Bickle from Taxi Driver haircut is attractive with the tattoos all over your arms and everything else, if you think that's attractive, and why, send me a tweet. Also, the Skype lines are open if you want to give us a call, or give me a call, I should say. I'm here all by myself. It's very lonely. Even my wife left. I think she went to the store. So, yeah, just get in touch. You know, whatever you want to talk. The transfer window closed. And Gary Hooper and Victor Wanyama didn't go anywhere. I wonder where that came from. I wonder who's been saying that all month. We should find that person and seek out their wisdom. Oh, I know, it was me. And look, here's the deal. You know, the bid that came in, $9.2 million, how could they refuse that? There was no $9.2 million bid. And even if there was, it would be, you know, it's been commented on. It would be, you know, $5 million maybe up front, which I don't even think Norwich have. And then, you know, all sorts of escalators if X, Y, and Z were to happen. I said Z, not Z. There was no good faith bid that came in for Gary Hooper, even from Spurs. It's TalkSport trying to sell advertisements from their stupid radio show full of half-wits the whole time. It doesn't make any sense. Gary Hooper, Spurs. Gary Hooper would be fourth choice. I'm sorry, that's the reality at Spurs. I mean, he might get on in the Carling Coca-Cola Cup or whatever, you know, they're calling that, or something like that. He's not going to beat out Adebayor. He's not going to beat out Defoe. And no, he's not going to beat out Clint Dempsey. Now, Jermaine Defoe is on the wrong side at 30, and Clint Dempsey's not far behind them. So it might be a good bit of business as a future sort of investment with Gary Hooper. But in terms of Gary Hooper getting in there and getting some bona fide playing time on the front end, no chance. Absolutely not. And we've talked about it where he's not consistent enough. Gary Hooper is a prolific goal scorer. He's a front-to-goal striker. As I mentioned before, he's improved by leaps and bounds. That's great to see. Getting into the prime of his career, he's 24 years old, but he's expanding his arsenal of weapons and capacities, and that's only going to serve him in good stead. But as we know, he has a game, you know, where he just absolutely goes off. Scores 2 goals, scores a hat trick, and then he'll go missing for a couple of weeks. You go missing in the EPL, you go right back to the back of the line. You go missing 1 game, you're on probation. You miss 2 games, that's it, pal. You're right at the back of the line. That's how competitive it is. And you know, perhaps he would get more of an opportunity playing at Norwich, but I mean, let's face facts. He's going to wind up right back in the Championship. So why he would even entertain a move to Norwich is beyond me. Now, Victor Wanyama, another case altogether. Now, apparently there was no bids in whatsoever for Victor Wanyama. Not to say that there wasn't attention, but everybody got their knickers in a twist when Sir Alex Whiskey Breath came up. Oh, I kid Sir Alex. For the game, the midweek game a couple of weeks ago, and it was the night before Sean Fallon's funeral. And everybody was like, oh, he's here to look at Wanyama. Wanyama's gone. Start the bidding at $12 million. When, you know, yes, he probably had an eye on Wanyama. He's probably been tracking Wanyama. Wanyama's a perfect fit for Manchester United. Make no mistake about it. But there was no bid that came in. Victor Wanyama still has 3 years left in his contract, I believe, 2.5 years left in his contract. He doesn't have to go anywhere. And unless the right bid comes in, he's not going anywhere. But once again, we find a situation where he says nothing that would lead anyone to believe that he's for the off. He's always said, I'm happy at Celtic. I want to stay here. I want to continue to develop. And yet, TalkSport comes out. A friend has said that he would like to move because Manchester United is his favorite club. It's rubbish. The papers, the Tribal Football, the Evening Times, the TalkSport, they are in the business of selling advertisements, not giving you the truth. There's an agenda. And they know that selling papers is all about irritating Celtic supporters because the Celtic supporters get all up in arms about it. And then, you know, all the Huns throughout Scotland buy it up because they love it. Ha ha ha, you're losing your bet. No, we're not. We're not losing anybody. The only thing that's losing is them in cup competitions. 15 seconds it took. Jackie McNamara's reign at Dundee United. 15 seconds, goal. From Johnny Russell, who I do want to talk about at some point, because we do need to talk about the future. We do need to prepare for Gary Hooper leaving. Excuse me. See, that's what happens when the Rev leaves. It's dry. I'm trying to fight off a cold. I can't come to Scotland with the flu. I need to hydrate. And the Rev leaves me twisting. Shame on you, Rev. Gary Hooper is not going to re-sign a contract. He's not. It would be nice if Celtic would, do sort of the sign and drive type deal. Sign him up to a contract, get him on the wage book for whatever wages he wants or needs or whatever, and that way we can negotiate a better deal to sell him on. But that's not going to happen. That's not in sort of the framework of the business model that Celtic is in right now. And I'm in no position whatsoever to critique the business model of Celtic right now. Frankly, the club is shitting money. So from that perspective, steady as she goes and onwards. Peter Lawwell, I salute you. I'll bet you never heard those words were going to be uttered on this show, but I just did. Credit where it's due. It's not personal. I said that all along. But, he's just done a fantastic job. Look at this. $30 million from the Champions League. Plus, we're not done with the Champions League. We're beating Juventus. So $30 million so far, probably more from the Champions League. Bam. That's like almost half of our total turnover from last season. That's unbelievable. It's remarkable. Now, you got to expect at least $5 million for Gary Hooper at some point in the summer or elsewhere. So you got that. You got another, we'll just say conservatively, $10 million for Wanyama. So what do we have? 45. That's almost the entire total turnover from last year in selling two players and the Champions League returns. That's absolutely phenomenal. But Gary Hooper wants to be paid on par with Joe Ledley, which is never going to happen. And the only reason why Joe Ledley's on that money is because he came on a Bosman and he was being touted by a lot of the Premiership clubs. And he came here instead. He got a signing bonus and a higher wage than he normally would have if we were paying out a transfer fee. So we'll put that one to a side. Now, information is that Scott Brown is on the same deal. Rumored to be $25,000 a week. I have information that says Gary Hooper's on 18 a week. And Gary Hooper wants to be on 25 a week. It's never going to happen. Celtic will not pay him that. It just sets a bad precedent in terms of when players come in, they can hold the club hostage. As good as Gary Hooper is, I think he's replaceable in many ways. And, it might be the right time for Gary Hooper to move on in the summertime. So I wouldn't expect this Gary Hooper saga to have a happy ending if you want Gary Hooper to be here for an extended period. I just don't see it happening. He's not going to sign a new contract, and which would essentially mean he's being sold. Now compound that with the fact that if we get through, we have 3 qualifying rounds that we need to get through just to get into the Champions League. We're not even guaranteed Europa League. So there's a lot of work to do in that summer. And a lot of the work that we need to do is before the transfer window closes. And I think a lot of that's going to be dependent. Imagine you're Victor Wanyama. You're being touted by this one or that one, and you're a £10 million rated player. You got your taste of Champions League football from the season previous. You're a boyhood Manchester United fan. And if we do have a poor showing in the qualifiers, and let's say we wind up in the Europa League, are you, Victor Wanyama, going to pass up the opportunity to go to Manchester United if they come in and they'll be in the Champions League and we're going to play in the Europa League? No, definitely not. He's gone. He's going to want to go. He's going to put the sign around his neck, come and get me. And that's just the reality of it. It's not fun for me to say. It's not anything that I want to happen, but it's just the reality. It's the reality of where we are and the changing scope of our perceptions and our relationships to these players. We bring these players in as unknowns. Who the hell is Victor Wanyama from Germinal Beerschot in the Belgian league? We paid $900,000 for. Who is he? Then he comes in, first couple games, boy seems solid. For a young kid, I mean, strong, look at him, and then, it gradually builds. Scores the game-winning goal against Hearts. I was in the Bronx boys CSC for that game. For the Paul Larkin book launch. Jeez, I guess that was 2 Decembers ago. Got to get back up to the Bronx. So Wanyama progresses. And never hides and develops. I mean, we saw him blossom before our eyes. And he really put his stamp on the Champions League. I mean, the goals that he scored against Barcelona, dominating the midfield, against Spartak Moscow, against Benfica. The eyes of the world were cast upon him. And he really shined. And he's getting deserved plaudits and praise and attention. At this point, he's going to make us a lot of money. But the reality is, things change. Just like things change with supporters' expectations. We go back to the example of Izzy. Izzy comes in, has a brilliant first year. I mean, just a bolt of lightning that came into the side. Who the hell is Emilio Izaguirre from Chapacola in Honduras? Nobody knows. Pay $600,000, he comes in, he has a brilliant year. Second season goes down, and all the expectations were he was the one that was looked at by Manchester United. He was the one that was being looked at by Liverpool, etc. And he goes out with the injury, and takes him a long time. I mean, that was a debilitating injury. Comes back, and he's not himself, and he's not going to be himself. But everybody's expectations are still on cloud 9, and he's not going to be that player. He might never be that player again, considering the injury. But that's okay. It's relative. Him being not quite the player of the year caliber player, he's still a fairly good left back. But he gets all sorts of stick. He's shite. He's lost it. And it's all relative to how he was. He's still a very serviceable left back, and we're lucky to have him. Liverpool and Man United aren't going to be in for him, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. How long did we go without a left back of note? Here we've had this kid for the past 3 years, and probably have him for a couple more. And he's been exceptional. Anyway, now joining us to talk me off of this ledge that I'm on. You put me on a show by myself, and it just turns into the Twilight Zone. The green and white writer himself, Paul Larkin, has joined us. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Graham.
How are you, sir?
What mood are you in today, then?
You know what? I think I have this anxiety about the flight next week, and I'm it's just coming out of me. I mean, everything. Just the way I'm talking, the way I'm thinking. When I land,
everything's for the best in this best of all possible worlds.
Right. I'm going to write that down. While I'm sitting on an airplane right next to a propeller 5 feet from my head, I'm going to repeat that over and over again while I sip my scotch.
Propeller. You could have splashed out and got a real plane, surely.
Yeah, exactly. Well, with some of the claims being thrown out about me, people think I'm a millionaire or something. But
we're not supposed to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm a millionaire. So, Paul, what did you make of the game today? First off, were you there? Did you go to Gucardi? Okay. What did you make of the pitch? I mean, obviously, watching it on the telly, it was just awful. I mean, you could tell the players, it was hard enough just to stand up without slipping. I mean, Kelvin Wilson a couple times kicked the ball and just lost his footing completely, and it tells the tale of how heavy the pitch was. When you first got to the stadium, I mean, was it obvious, like, oh, geez, this is going to be one of these games?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty open ground. They've obviously built a sort of small stand, which nobody was in today. The building one, I don't know what the score of that is, but previous to that, you used to be able to see the train going past on the railway line right behind it. So, and for some reason, I don't know who the architect was of the main stand, but they obviously thought, let's just build one that goes halfway up the park and then we'll just leave the other part empty. I have no idea why. But, at the end of the day, it's cup football, it's lower league opposition, and, you've seen it all over the FA Cup, the Oldham beat Liverpool, stuff like that. These games are never going to be easy. We're never going to be as up for it as the opposition.
Right.
And it's just about the big players, being able to handle that. And I didn't really think we were under any, great threat. Perhaps, slight kind of hesitancy for the fans and that because of Zaluska's kind of performance in the cup game last week. But Kelvin Wilson will never have an easier game of football in his life.
No question.
And I mean, the pitch was wobbly and stuff, but I mean, there's none of these players that were just put into the Celtic team to birth, so they've all played on crap pitches and stuff, or they wouldn't have been anywhere near Celtic. So that can't really be using it as an excuse. And overall, we won the game, we're in the next round, and that's all that matters in cup football.
Exactly, and we saw the return of James Forrest. Now, I made the comment a bit earlier. I don't know if you've added some levity in terms of the pitch. I mean, what we saw on the television feed was absolutely awful. But this might not have been my best opportunity. If I'm Neil Lennon, I might have second thoughts about putting a player who's had hamstring problems chronically into a game like this on a pitch like that. Your thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, this has been a thing. The last time we actually played at Starts Park in a competitive game was in about April '97, and it was. I remember it well because the Canio scored in the last minute for us. They ran right out of the park and equalised, and then that was the game finished. And the pitch was so bad that Tommy Bunn said after the game, "Jesus Christ, we'd have a problem with it." And I remember that vividly. It was also, for other rebels out there, it was the weekend that the IRA stopped the Grand National, so. I distinctly remember that game because when they announced that at half time, the whole Celtic end burst into the Broad Black River. So, those were the days. But, yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, I mean, it was hard, I think. I know what you're saying, you're thinking to yourself, with Forrest and stuff, oh Christ, do you really let him bring on this pitch? And I don't think you can really run football like that, I think you can. You see the quality that Forrest was still able to do with his goal. You've seen, the quality that people like Cooper were able to go past people at. It really shouldn't come into the equation at all. And thankfully, Forrest came on again, scored a goal, and hopefully, we get a better outcome next time because you can see what the difference he makes in terms of his pace, going past people, having that wide man outlet alone. Which in times, we're having to wait on fullbacks coming up and stuff like that. So. What Forrest does is he allows your predators like Stokes and Hooper to kind of position themselves in the box, and that's what we've been missing. Or I genuinely believe we'd have had the league actually clinched by now if he'd been playing this season.
Exactly, and you definitely saw how much we've missed him. When he came on, especially. I mean, obviously, like you said, he does give you that attacking option down the flank. I mean, I always love, when he gets the ball at his feet and he takes the man on, that burst of speed that he has in that first 10 to 15 yards to get past the man, we've missed that. Tony Watt gives you an element of that through his strength, but it's not the same. And when you have Jamesy run down the flank, it almost seems as though there's that familiarity in terms of support, and running into the box. And you saw that when he came in. We had many more attacking sort of opportunities, much more flair, and that translated into not just possession. I mean, before he came on, and like you said, throughout the first half, we had possession, but making use of the possession, stopping a lot of that, triangular passes that always seem to wind up going back to the center halves. Having an attacking option that's looking up the park, and he's going to be absolutely vital, especially for the European games, and especially given the fact that it looks like Samaras is going to miss the first leg.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to put all these things in context. I mean, you look at Tony Watt today, a couple of times he gets wide. Tony Watt 2 months ago shoots, instead he passes. And you've not seen him for a month or so, in real terms. And so your confidence is quite there. Ditto Wilson last week, gets bluffed into running across the box for the first St Mirren goal by Stephen Thompson. It's the first game he's played in a month. You've got to put these things into context. I know as fans it's frustrating as hell, because you want to just go there and slap these teams left, right and centre. But the end of the day, these players are human beings, and whatever they say or they don't, they're going to have one eye on Juventus, and they're going to play that accordingly. I mean, I think that probably the only criticism I would ever have in Neil Lennon is occasionally his tactics become a bit Strachan-esque for Strachan's last season, and it seems odd. Just staying in the game where somebody will win it for us. That's not really the players we have at Celtic right now. We didn't have Naka or McGeady or people like that.
Exactly.
It's a team, and you see the team goals that we've been scoring recently against the Hearts and Dundee United and Curry. That's how we'll score goals against opposition, and getting to the wing and getting balls back is what we're all about. And so to have Forrest there to do that, and Tony Watt will do it as well. I always I watched the Dundee United Serco game yesterday, and people say, "We need to get Johnny Russell. We need to get Johnny Russell." That's Johnny Russell who had basically 1 foot in the game and done nothing but score 2 goals, which is fine in the context of Dundee United because he scored 2 goals, but You put that in a Celtic jersey, it's a different scenario. Fans will be screaming at him after 20 minutes to get his arse in gear. You know, so you know, I think that what's happened, the dynamic of our front line is that Hooper's been asked to play a different role.
Yeah.
And it's almost like Lennon's looked at Rooney and seen what Rooney does in terms of tracking back and going deep and going to win the ball and change the attack and all that kind of thing, and said to him, you can be that kind of player. Now, people can say, oh, but he's not as good as he was last season. Well, look at his goal ratio and look at the fact that the Premiership clubs are now come knocking. So they're seeing it and we're seeing it. And I'm sure Gary will be gone at the end of the season. We have best wishes, but the reason he will be gone is because he's added so much more than goals to his game.
I agree completely, and that's always the example that I think about. You know, when I sort of chart Gary Hooper's advancement and maturation as a player, then that you hit it perfectly. Wayne Rooney, you know, you think about the player that Wayne Rooney was, you know, when they had Ronaldo. I mean, obviously he'd be much further wide, and then, you know, after Ronaldo left, you know, I mean, he was much more of a center forward, sort of tip of the spear striker, and he was scoring goals for fun. But you've seen a development of Wayne Rooney. I mean, he's even played in the midfield, you know, with Chicharito coming in, and you know, when they had Berbatov and all that. So he's played a much deeper role, and especially back to goal, and he's done quite well with that under Ferguson. And I think Gary Hooper has, I mean, when you know, the big reason why I'm comfortable with Gary Hooper continuing on with this is because we've seen improvement. I mean, when he first started sort of that role, you know, dropping back deep, it's like, what are you doing? You know, I mean, you're a 20 to 30 goal scorer, you know, for fun the past 2 years. Now you're dropping deep, and, you know, there's nobody up in the box. But as time has gone on, and I think a lot of it has been Neil Lennon, you know, figuring out, you know, the best way to sort of match up and the best formations to have an advancing midfielder maybe to run onto it after he's held it up and then distribute, and then have him get back up.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Hooper's, now with the players have come back from injury, if Hooper's dropping deep, looking at wide, laying it off, Stokes is back, he can score goals in the SPL and he can mop up the chances, you know, quite easily. And it's actually a good thing. I mean, it's obviously different in terms of the context of Juventus. It's a different animal altogether. But at the end of the day, it's like Gary Hooper has been scoring goals almost every week, you know?
Yeah.
And I think his attitude's been great, you know, because it's obviously been getting to him. You know, I think it's clear he wants to go back to England. I don't think many players stay more than 2 or 3 years if they don't actually come for the country. And, you know, it's a shame because, you know, I think they said in a programme today that Gary Hooper scored something like 73 goals in 113 games for Celtic. And you think to yourself, you know, you could be up there with the Larsons and the Chalmers and the Bobby Lennox and people like that in terms of your goal scoring if he stayed. But clearly he sees his future elsewhere. So for the money we paid and the contribution he's made, it's been a terrific signing.
Yeah, absolutely phenomenal. A lot of build-up, you know, to the end of the transfer window, and a lot of the media reports come out there, and it just seems like so many people take such credence in, you know, these sources that are just perennially incorrect, and it's so obvious their agenda. Are you surprised that neither Gary Hooper nor Victor Wanyama moved on in this window?
I'm surprised Gary Hooper didn't. I would suggest that there's probably a manager in the EPL right now who's just got a bad injury to one of his strikers who's absolutely raging at the fact they never bought him because they were definitely sniffing about him, and that was Tottenham.
Yeah.
I think, you know, there's people, I've read some absolute rubbish people and stuff like that. There's people that I know that speak directly to Neil Lennon and they tweet stuff about the bids when they high. You know, Celtic never got offered anywhere near the kind of money that Sky were telling me that. And I believe these people because these are people that are in touch with the manager almost every day. For the looks of it looks like Wanyama will go in the summer, as will Gary Hooper. And whilst that's, you know, a disappointment and you want to keep building, the reality is that's the business model of the club. That's how we're managing to compete in the Champions League because of this. And you could argue that Rogic has been bought as Wanyama's replacement, you know, which is exactly the kind of signing that we're kind of doing more and more of.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it would be horrendous to see both of them go, obviously, because they're both fantastic players. But at the end of the day, this is the thing that's pushed us back to winning leagues and competing in the Champions League. Therefore, we could easily pull in the upshot of 20-25 million for the both of these players total, which will just enable us to kind of keep putting money into the scouting and keep putting money into youth development and keep producing our own players. Because from what I can gather from the sources at Celtic and people that go to the youth games and that, there's a new breed ready to come through. Which at the end of the day, I think most football fans, and I'm talking about real football fans, the ones that just came in football and television did, want to see 11 guys through the ranks playing and representing Celtic every week.
No question about it. And the evidence is there through Barcelona and some of the other larger entities that have embraced the academy concept and blooding players in from a young age and getting around a concept of how to play together. I think the evidence is there that that's really the way forward with financial fair play and everything else. It can be very competitive, and you don't need to spend these incredible amounts of money. I mean, it's almost flipped around where the clubs like with the sugar daddies, Chelsea, Manchester City. I mean, we can't say it enough. They go out and they spend close to $500 million on their sides, and they can't even get out of the group stages. That's not the way forward. And you're absolutely right. That's what the sort of in the fabric Celtic supporters. That's what we want. We want players that are Celtics through and through. I mean. We can bring in players from overseas. I mean, obviously, Henrik Larsson didn't grow up, with a Kenny Dalglish poster in his bedroom, and who knows if he was ever even in Scotland prior to being signed by Celtic. But he came in, he knew what the ethos of the club was, and he became part of the club. But there is something a bit different as compared to, go back to the Lisbon Lions. Everybody was within 30 miles rather of Celtic Park, and that has a completely sort of different mantra. I mean, again, look at Barcelona and how passionate each of those players are and loyal and how much they love everything that club stands for. They're not mercenaries. So it's going to be it's just an exciting time to be a Celtic supporter because you do have that to look forward to. But Paul, let me ask you, we're approaching a period of time here that, in my opinion, I think is every bit as pivotal as the summer when Neil Lennon became full-time manager. And what I mean by that is, we're on a plateau at this point. Like players, they come in, they don't have much of a name, but then, they get some time in the starting 11 and they develop. So they go from this sort of unknown entity, they exceed our expectations, and then all of a sudden they go to a different level. Okay, they're a good player, so we're going to expect more things out of them. And then, progressively up. The same thing happens with the club, at this point. We're on, basically the balls of our ass, to use a New York expression, when Neil Lennon took over this club. And how far he's taken us in 3 years is nothing short of phenomenal. But we are on a bit of a plateau, a bit of I guess springboard is a more apt analogy at this point, where, like you said, we're going to sell a couple of players and probably bring in an excess of $20 million just from that sale. Add to that the Champions League money that we're bringing in this season. And now there's a bit of a rumbling that, perhaps we need to not really change our scouting philosophy, but maybe instead of going after these £1 million, £2 million players at most, maybe we need to start looking at the £4 or £5 million players. For me personally, I don't see anything wrong with the system that we're employing right now. I mean, we're bringing in players that can compete with. I mean, look where we are. I think we're in with a shout to get past Juventus. I mean, maybe here or there we could sort of round out the edges with a player of a bit more quality. But in terms of changing the market that we're shopping in, so to speak, I'm not so sure we should do that just because we have the extra money. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, money doesn't guarantee anything, but what squandering money does is guarantee huge debt.
Yeah.
And that's something I don't think this club's ever going to do again. No. I mean, look, it's unfortunately the time we live in, because I think most football fans, apart from the kind of amateur accountants out there, they didn't really like talking about money. They like talking about players and goals and winning games and stuff like that.
Right.
But in the reality that we live in now, every week it's something else about money, and we guarantee this and we guarantee that and all that kind of thing, which is fine as long as the team on the park is progressing and doing well. And of course, it's never going to be perfect. I mean, obviously you've had the Champions League progression, we're well ahead in the league. But the cup performances the last year or so have been an absolute disgrace. There's no getting away for that. I mean, I've probably never been as sick after Celtic games for about 20 years that I have in the last 3 visits to Hampden. It's just not good enough. And if the players can't transform their attitude to win these games, because don't forget, Celtic were the best cup team in Scotland forever. I said last week, the 85 Scottish Cup final was won because Roy Aitken burst his lungs to get a ball that was going out the park and Matt McGarvey died full length to get it in. That's the kind of commitment you need in the games to beat these teams. So these things need to address, obviously, but you curry that with the fact that we're in the last 16 of the Champions League, and we shouldn't be looking at the Champions League last 16 as the be all and end all. The be all and end all is winning the cup at Wembley.
Exactly.
So
exactly,
it's where we are as a club. Let's not write off anything, but let's make sure that we now dominate Scottish football for a long time, because whether we like it or not, with the demise of Rangers, we should be hoovering up every trophy in this country. And the fact that we've not been doing that has to be addressed. I mean, the Celtic supporters demand that and deserve it, quite frankly. We shouldn't have to be sitting in our living rooms watching Kilmarnock and Hearts win trophies that should be sitting in our cabinet. So, you've got to kind of marry both these things. Having said that, of course, it's very hard to win a treble, because that's why the fact that hardly anybody's ever done it, So, but as a club, I mean, look, the thing for me with the club right now is the team's pretty much all right, tweak it here and there or whatever. What we need to address is the fact that the fans are not coming through the turnstiles in the numbers they should be. And they can say whatever they want. It's not, they can blame it on lack of success previously. We're successful now. We've had successful, journeys, and we're out with the champions of Scotland. The fact is, it costs too much money to get into football matches, and that's something. There was a season ticket holder survey going around now. The Celtic are sending out all these things, and clearly they're alarmed at the fact that so many people aren't turning up at home games now, because for even 2 or 3, 4 years ago, the crowd's probably dropped to about 15,000. So they want to obviously ask these people why coming. And it's hard, I think, because it's no people like you or me or anybody like that that's kind of living and being Celtic all the time. It's the people who will want to go to Juventus games.
Right.
And the clubs are saying to them, well, why do you only want to go to Juventus games? Now, we all know that. It's because, it's your glamour game against Juventus, and we know that they'll pay 49 quid to get into it, and they'll get regardless. But the reality is, these people will only pay 20, 60, 30 pounds to watch us play St Johnstone at home or anything like that. And so, if you look at the kind of fan movements with people like the Green Brigade and stuff, if I'm Celtic, and I know this is never going to happen, but if I'm Celtic, I'm saying to them, what can you do to recruit people into this football club for us?
No question about it.
Because there's a movement right there of people who, should have, they've got their own section, but if they're going to have the safe standing, which keeps coming up, have it there. Because I tell you, I can't even imagine what Celtic Park would be like without them. So that to me it's like when football players say, oh, you've never played the game, so you don't know what you're talking about. Well, these guys make these decisions, they've never supported the game. They've taken plenty of money out of the game, so it's time to ask the supporters and people like the Green Brigade who are responsible for bringing a fan movement together to say, how did you do it?
Exactly. I can't say it any better there. And in addition, Paul, I think we're in the midst of a vicious circle here, and what I mean by that is, you see a trend here where fans are. You saw the queues outside for Juventus tickets, and people are falling all over themselves. And then you see the blowback on Twitter. People saying, right, big game hunters, but where were you in the game against St. Mirren? Or where were you in the game against Dundee United? And the fact of the matter is, like you said, prices have gone up. And for a quote unquote not a glamour game, not a game that has huge ramifications or anything like that. If you're hard up for money, if money is in short supply at that moment, you have decisions that you have to make. That's just the reality of it. And the decision's always going to be, I'm going to the Juventus game. That's a special night. That's a night that I can tell my kids about. That's a night that the type of night that my dad told me about, that my uncles told me about. And that's just the reality of it. But the vicious circle element of it is, in addition, when you see the lack of attendance, for some of these SPL games, especially the cup games that are at home, 15, 20,000 people turn up for a cup game or 40,000 people turn up for a home SPL game. Like you said, even just 2 years ago, that would be 51, 52,000 that would turn up for it. Now all of a sudden it's 40. And when people see that, they're like, right, I'm not going to go to that game because nobody's going to be there and the atmosphere is crap. And, so it almost feeds on itself. The problem makes itself worse, through that exposure. And to the flip side, when people see the display that was present for the Barcelona tie, people say, oh my God, that's brilliant. I have to be there. And the demand goes up. And the only way to rectify it, you're absolutely right. Partner with the Green Brigade. Yes, I know, everybody has this sort of detracting image of them, but the reality is the place would be like a morgue if it wasn't for them. Secondly, like you said, and I agree completely, you have to drop the prices. This notion that Peter Lawwell throws out there about the prices being competitive, and then as per usual with Mr. Lawwell, doesn't follow it up with any sort of context that makes it mean anything. Competitive with what?
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's unfortunately the attitude of Celtic still prevails. All the supporters are out there just deliberately withholding their money and it's no date for Celtic's fault and all this kind of thing, which is complete and utter crap, quite frankly. You know, I mean, I'll give you an example. The Celtic View right now isn't selling enough copies to, you know, pay for your haul, basically, and yet the club will always back it up because it needs that platform for their advertising, and you're thinking, Jesus Christ, I mean, how in the box thinking can you get with that?
Seriously.
You know, nobody's reading it. It's that simple. Nobody is reading it.
Well, and I think that they've missed the ball in terms of digital as well. I had no idea the Celtic View was available on digital until I saw a tweet from Laura Brannan. You know, they put out something, the programs, the daily programs on an app last season. Come to find out this season it's not available anymore in the U.S. or out with the UK and Ireland. So I don't know how that makes any sense. The people that need it the most don't have access to it. Secondly, there's no marketing whatsoever in terms of the Celtic View being available on their app, which is the biggest waste of $5 I've ever spent, on their website, which continues to become outdated by the day. I mean, these are opportunities that they need to grasp onto, and they're not.
Yeah, and I think it's, again, a lot to do with the culture within the Celtic kind of media side of the club, where if they can't do it, they're not going to do it, and they'll never bring anybody in to do it because it'll make them look bad. Now, I mean, if you look at things like the Celtic View is a weekly magazine, and the technology we have right now, that could be done in probably about 4 hours, put together and written up and all that kind of thing. What exactly is everybody else doing that in the rest of the time? You know, it's mind-boggling that. You know, in-house journalism is always going to be a problem, right? It's always going to be a problem because it's never going to go against the club, and that's fine, you know, and all that sort of stuff. Except, where are the people that's going to take it on to the next level? Because that's what they're getting paid for. I mean, they're getting paid good money. Now, obviously, things are changing. The boss is leaving. You know, does this mean it's going to be opened up into somebody who can actually has that kind of social media background, digital and all that kind of stuff, or does it mean that we're just going to kind of size it down even more? Because as you say, it's, you know, having lived in America and I know how important it is for supporters to have great stuff on the website and great stuff on Celtic TV and all that. But I'm sorry, it's 2013 and they still haven't gotten over the concept of interviewing each other every day. Exactly. And you know, but we're not talking about Don Rickles' personality. These people here, you know, it's people. It's cliche after cliche after cliche. Fans are sick of that. The fans are sick of it. I mean, we had on this, I don't know, I know you get Sky Sports News over there, but for the transfer deadline thing, they had Niall Quinn and Simon Jordan, right? Now, both of them have obviously been chairman and owners of football clubs, so they've dealt with things, that's why they're there.
Sure.
But they're also there because some people absolutely hate them, some people absolutely love them.
Exactly.
You know, Simon Jordan sitting there with the blonde hair and all that kind of thing. Ugh. And I was sitting with 4 people, and 2 people were like, I can't stand that prick. And other people are like, he's really open. So he said, that's the people you want.
Exactly.
People that divide opinion because they've got one.
Right.
They've actually got an opinion, you know. Because I don't need to hear the opinion of Laura Brannan or, you know, Mark Henderson, however great people they are. I've never met them ever. Because I can see better and more honest opinion on Twitter every single day. You know, for people that I respect their opinion of, you know, I see different things going on. I mean, it's, I was in Wishaw last week for a gig for the Tommy Burns Skin Cancer Trust. You know, I met fantastic people there on Twitter today. You know, guys like Lorenzo Wursmith and Frank D. Billy's boys and Shug Clark. All these people, right, come out on a Friday night, freezing temperatures, snow, to support a gig. Tommy Burns, the Quadrophenians play, absolutely fantastic. That's Celtic to me. They kind of people, you know, these are the ones that, you know, and I had fantastic chats with them, and you know, Matt McGlone was there, Paul Brennan, all these kind of people. They're whether you like or dislike them or whatever, and they've all got opinions, you know, and that's what I want to hear. And so it's a bit kind of like, you know, going to the nursery school to hear the opinions when you read the Celtic View or whatever, because it's just like, well, we've already moved on for that argument. And whether you completely disagree with what somebody said on it or completely back it up, that's how things evolve.
Exactly.
You know, that's how the movement kind of evolves, and we position ourselves in places where, you know, this is what we're thinking about this, and this is what we're thinking about that, and all that kind of thing. And that's, you know, people kind of underestimate how powerful the fans can be. You know, when you had a game of football yesterday at Tannadice where no Celtic supporters are in the ground whatsoever. Yet most of the crowd had Craig White masks on. Right? Now, if you were to say that this time last season, people would just be laughing at you. You know what I mean? But that's how the kind of Celtic fan input goes out there and puts it in about what Craig White's like, this, that, and next thing. You know, good in the fact that we have a kind of common enemy and people like Charles Bean and that spouting all their nonsense and just uniting the fans of Scottish football even more and more against them. But, you know, that would never have existed, that game yesterday, was it not for fans on Twitter and bloggers and podcasters and all that kind of thing. So the fact that that's the power that they had right throughout the board, not just Celtic, but all, and yet Celtic didn't do a podcast and didn't do a blog, it just baffles me.
Well, and I think the crux of the problem, and again, I'm going to go back to my Lawwell hating hat, you know, in spite of the praise that I gave him earlier, but the message starts at the top. The CEO of the company, you know, sort of the figurehead, the message, the overall sort of way of thinking starts from there. That's his job. He needs to set that. And there is an obsession, and this is what's crippling Celtic at the moment in terms of its relationship with the supporters, the fans. There is an obsession with controlling the message, and that's what leads to those huddle online interviews that are just like, you know, wake me up when it's over. You know, like you said, cliche after cliche. It's the same people over and over again. They're not asking any challenging questions because they know they'll get the wrist slap if they do. You know, things like, not to toot our own horn, but, you know, Hail Hail Media. You have, 10 different shows, and most of them are completely different. I'll do my show, and I, you know, save my piece, you know, et cetera with that. And then, you know, the homeboys go on, and then it's like, what the hell is Jason saying? You know, or what the hell is Harper saying? You know, but I listen every week, you know, because I want to hear what Harper's going off about or what Jason's rambling on about.
The thing about that is, you know, I've listened to all the shows and obviously Go On, Homeboys and things like that. And I can sit there one time and say Harper's talking all the rubbish, but then the next week say I totally agree with him, right. Because I know Harper's agenda is Celtic winning every football match.
Exactly.
Suit his love of Celtic, and same as yourself and the Temporary Scan guys and the 90-minute cynics and the, you know, the Carl Luke boys and all that kind of thing.
Exactly.
I'm not going to hate on them because I didn't agree with them,
right.
You know, and I'm not going to spit the dummy about it because I didn't agree with them.
Right.
And, you know, and often they make me think, you know.
Yep.
Sometimes it's better just to listen, you know, rather than just be like, no, I disagree. To say, you know, try to evolve the point in your heat and stuff. Because the reality is, the thing at Celtic, and by the way, this has been happening my entire life. If the team's winning, Celtic can treat the fans however they like.
Exactly.
I mean, they really can. They can do whatever they want. I mean, that's why the wages were always crap at Celtic, both in the park and the staff, was because, you know, the people were there saying, well, I mean, they all love Celtic, so they'll play for nothing, you know. And that's what it is. I mean, if you look at Celts for Change, you know, when they first started, people saying you have to call a boycott. I say, there's no way we can call a boycott now. We've got to establish ourselves as a voice, show what we're all about, show we're genuine Celtic fans. But at the end of the day, what also had to happen was the team had to keep losing for fans to support a boycott. And despite the fact that people, they were saying, you know, oh, we need to boycott to get the Kellys in the white suit, the team's never going to be in a game, we're about to die, that's why you need to boycott. Still, about 7,000 Celtic fans went in that game, you know. So again, there's no point in saying, oh, you know, stuff or aim away at the game or whatever. That's their opinion.
Right.
I've no reason to disbelieve the fact that they're genuine Celtic supporters. You know, anybody like that. Everybody's got different opinions in that. You know, in that era, for example, the older generation at the time, the guys that were in their 60s and that, so in the mid-90s, they were absolutely 100% behind the Kellys, because they could think of it was Robert Kelly, who's obviously the chairman won the European Cup. And they just could not understand why all these guys were anti until the team started losing every week, you know. And so again, opinions are always going to be divided, people are always going to fall out and all that kind of thing, but at the end of the day, we all love Celtic, you know. I'm sure everybody Twitter every day is, oh, whatever that is, whatever, but they didn't write off that person forever just because they didn't like one tweet or whatever, you know.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the way of operating going forward, is embracing the fact that you can have instantaneous connection and communication with anybody around the world. You know, and instead of embracing that and bringing it in and using that to your strength, as Celtic should, because Celtic has supporters worldwide, it's almost like it's stifled, you know, because, right, this is the message and we're going to dictate the message, and we're going to marginalize anyone who wants to have a message that's not on par with this. or
Yeah.
or somebody who's going to have maybe a similar message, but a message that's louder than ours. We're going to try and stamp them down. It's a power issue.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it comes from the fact that it's not face-to-face business. It's all a trip. It's a private trip. It's personal to me at the weekend, and within we mentioned it to one person, and within about 15-20 seconds, that person was picking me and other people up to the airport. And that's when you realise what sort of Celtic's all about, and the kind of old school mentality is. They often kind of derided Celtic family thing. That's what it's all about. And I've had book launches and had people there who have been completely against something I've said or abused me or whatever, and that. But it's never been spilled over to like a book launch. They always come up and we always have a laugh about it because we all get hit up. Christ, I mean, I used to be one of the world's worst for it. I mean, honest to God, I mean, I would be, one of these. I actually read, if you read the book, The Novel Crime by Irvin Welsh, which is about this heart-supporting detective who goes to Miami and gets caught up trying to stop this paedophile ring. Look, the thing about it is that he's on Jambo's Kickback message board. And
Wow.
He's arguing about Craig Gordon, and he ends up saying to the guy, look, I've had enough of this. This is my fucking address. I'll be here at this time. My name's this, and that's it. I'm what to fight you, basically. And then, of course, the admin comes in. Come on, we'll call a halt to this now, boys. I've done that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I have done that in the past, and I'm sure people say, who might listen to this now saying, who's this kind of day on the road to Damascus? But it's just getting older, it's just getting older and more mature and having kids and families and having to worry about that and all that kind of thing. And meeting people, and finding out, actually, this guy's actually alright.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully, like, with the book launches and stuff, that's happened more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I've met people and stuff, and I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. I mean, all the people that was there, and the thing I was at Wishaw, apart from Jason and Matt McGlone and Paul Brennan, I would never have met any of them if it had been for Twitter. And then these are good people, Billy Noel and that, meet his family, genuinely nice, warm people, and sometimes it's good just to be in that kind of company. People who have got no airs or graces or hidden agenda, how you doing, how'd you get through, all that kind of thing. And it's nice, and these things break out more and more. I've absolutely no doubt that, I'm not into sort of deriding other Celtic fans for sort of, because you didn't like their opinion, or you might be disagree with what they do or what they say or whatever, then fine, that's fine. But Jesus Christ, at the end of the day, it should all be about, Celtic supporters should be the first and foremost thing, and that's it, really.
Exactly. The supporters and the club themselves. Speaking of book launches, you have a book launch coming up in a couple of months. Tell us about that. Another night out. Just based on the fanfare from the last one and the turnout that you got, what are the expectations this time? What are you trying to turn it up another notch this time out? And give us the details around it.
It's actually difficult because it's one of the kind of best laid plans and all that. You can easily say, this is what we've got to do. Like, yeah. That's pretty much what we've done last season at the Kilmarnock game, and then we won the league and everybody turned up absolutely weathered. So you can only do so much, and it has to be said that the host of the event was the most weathered person there. So these are things you can never sit down and say, right, hang me.
True.
But this is probably going to be the one and only book launch, certainly in the context area, where it's just going to be about the book. It's it's a book that's about a certain time frame in Celtic's history. So from March 93 to March 94, we won the end chapter in May 2012. And the vibe is going to be that kind of era. And what I'm sort of going to do is kind of have a disco with songs that are from that era to kind of get everybody in the mood and stuff.
That's cool.
And then I'm going to get more into it because the novel is something that I've done that's completely different to anything I've done before, primarily because you're not writing about factual stuff.
Right.
There's factual events in it, obviously, but then there's incidents that are fictional that I've put in that happen around them and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, a lot of them are based on real events and real people and stuff. And as I said before, you'll notice when you read the book, or if you read the book, that there are a lot of kind of bampots and people for Twitter and all that are in the book in different guises.
Okay.
So for example, try to think of an explanation. Jim McGuigan is in it, and
okay.
In a context that you'd never imagined him. David Harper's in it, and
geez.
that's based on it's amazing because the David Harper part of it is based on one tweet I seen him write about 4 months ago. That's the kind of thing. There's also, I'll be asking people as the book comes out and stuff, although it's set in 1994, look for all the analogies that are in it that relate to maybe the last year and see how many you can spot and all that kind of stuff. But it's effectively about a guy who's no me, because I do feature in the book, so I am not the main character, and the main character is not based on me because he's got a completely different character to what I've got. And he's kind of 20-year-old, and he's starting to grow up a bit. He's starting to find out about love and life, wanting to get out of his parents' house, wanting to meet a nice girl, and pissed off for the fact that his football team are getting beat all the time, whereas, their biggest rivals are winning all the time. And it's all in the backdrop of all that, and the kind of frustration that was born by the Celtic support, in the numerous conversations we had in that period where it was like, when the fuck is this ever going to end?
Yeah.
And stuff like that. And just maybe the wee victories that we had in that time that fought back against that kind of Murray manipulation in Scotland at the time. And it's kind of like a black comedy. There's a lot of experience in there that maybe I wasn't involved in, but I maybe witnessed to afar and stuff like that. And what I try to do as well is remind the reader as often as possible that it's a book that's set in 93, 94, so there's a lot of things that happen that would never happen now. Like going to meet people and stuff, and the only way you couldn't turn up late.
Right.
Right. Whereas now people just use the text message to turn up late to anything.
Right.
And so then people would just be like, "What the fuck have you been?" And if they hadn't already left and stuff like that. So, there's a certain innocence about this character, but sort of an event happens to him, and the innocence starts to die a bit. And so it was all written in the context of what was happening with Rangers last season and subsequently with Sevco this season. That they eventually did get their comeuppance. So this is basically my death wish.
Yeah, what I'm enjoying a lot. I mean, this is once again another offering from you that's different. And that's what I like about your sort of body of work. No two pieces are the same. Yes, in the past you've done a lot of sort of objective nonfiction and doing a lot of the educating. That's especially good for me because I wasn't there. And I wasn't a Celtic supporter at the time. But what I like about this book, first off, like you said, you take the reader back to 1993, 1994. So like you said, there's examples of what life was like then when we didn't have the conveniences of text message and Twitter and cell phones and et cetera. So it has a different sort of texture and a different sort of feel based on that. And I think that really assists me as the reader to get into the shoes of the character. That's really the essence of writing in fiction. You want to draw the reader into the main character's sort of perspective. And I like it as well because, yes, in reading your books and others, talking about this same time period, where Rangers were winning everything and Celtic were, on the verge of extinction. It's a completely different thing when you're learning about, sort of the what actually took place in sort of the black and white versus getting into the shoes of somebody that was living through it. It's almost like you get the opportunity to live through it with the reader, and it makes me appreciate what's going on so much more as a result.
I mean, one of the things that I definitely based a part of my life in the book was the kind of, at that period of your life, and certainly I'm sure a lot of people in Scotland and Ireland will be better in England as well for that matter, relate to this, is the kind of running commentary your father has on your life when you're 18, 19, 20. Because a lot of fathers, particularly in Scotland, I think, they just never understand anything that you do. And so if I kind of had that in, a lot of it was based on my own father and somebody else's father, who were both kind of, disciplined, hard people who, just sort of were just kind of incredulous at everything you'd done. At a time when, and you probably didn't realise at the time when you're 18, 19, 20, you just want them to love you, and say, I know I love you, son, and all that kind of thing. And I thought, I'll write that I'll write an incident which has the father in a kind of Scottish psychopath way saying, this is why I love you, And so people, because it's we live in an age now where everybody's offended by everything,
Yeah, that's true.
and that's not the era I grew up in. I didn't grow up in a place, I grew up in the AIDS capital of Europe, so nobody really gave a toss about their sensitivities,
Yeah.
What they gave a toss about was putting food on the table for their children and put a roof over their head and clothing them and trying to get them a good education and pray they got a job. At this point, 93, 94, you're 14, 15 years into a Tory government, which is just decimating Scotland. And so there's a lot of desperation and poverty about, as there is now. So if somebody, calls you a name on that, you didn't kind of run away crying, You stood up to them and you said, why am I saying that? And there probably was a fight and stuff like that, but you never, maybe shot each other or anything like that. So it's kind of like, in that context, people were a bit more tougher, and there wasn't a kind of collective hysteria that you get now, where I can't ever remember coming out of a football match at that time and everybody saying, oh Jesus Christ, I'll never be back. Did you hear the songs they were singing?
Yeah.
Did you hear that guy pissing against the wall? And that just didn't happen.
Yeah.
It just did not happen. And people can say, oh well, football changed for the better. Well, did it? Maybe this book will argue that it didn't actually change for the better, because at the end of the day, had there not been a kind of communal community spirit amongst the Celtic support, who's to know what would have happened to Celtic, at that time. The support was very united at that time, and under a kind of common cause. And there's loads of things. There's incidents I've talked about that really happened and all that kind of thing, through the characters' eyes and all that kind of thing. And it's just maybe try to open up into a kind of different world, if you like, of what, things didn't always happen in this kind of PC liberal way all the time. People were skint and needed a loan of money. People did things because they had to survive. People didn't give two hoots about who they offended. I mean, it's one incident that's in the book that was based on a true story was when Rangers got knocked to the European Cup by CSK Moscow way back when, and so it stopped going into the European final. We were at a race night on the Friday, and we just, as a band there at our table after it, said, let's, instead of going home on a bus or a taxi, let's just all walk home singing No Huns in Unit. And that's what we did. And I've never felt probably strong in my life, going up a hill in Drumbrae in Edinburgh and along Queensway Road and back to my house, and I felt as proud as possible. Walked the door, my old man slapped me right across the face and told me to shut the fuck up because I'd be woken everybody up. And these were the kind of things, and that was it. I didn't like report them to the authorities or claim to have been abused all my life or any of this kind of nonsense. I just, that's just how it happened. So it was kind of a rougher time, but it's one of these things where we talk about internet bampots, and if you think about like real head cases, real bampots, a saying that I have often heard in that era, both when Hibs were trying to fight for life to save themselves with Hearts, and when Celtic were, was there's always room for head cases. There's always room for the guys that will just punch first and think later, because sometimes that's what needed to happen.
Yeah.
And so hopefully people won't run to the wherever they complain to these days or blog about it and say how utterly offended they are, but they probably will.
Speaking of overly liberal PC sort of easily offended, we're now joined by Chaz from the Bronx. Say hello, Chaz.
Hail, Graham. Hail, Paul.
How you doing, big man?
How sounds?
Very good, aye.
Get in here, Chaz. Well, you've been listening in, and give us your thoughts. In terms of the era that we're going into now, and now we're devising laws that tell people what you're allowed to sing and not sing, and where you can sing it, and I'm just a neutral party. I'm an American who blushes at the sound of the C word. Just first off, fill me in terms of
cash.
Cash and carry. I know I had to slip
that. Seems
that.
to have been replaced by the word scamp.
Yes, scamp. Everybody's a scamp. And Cash and Carry Scamp on a Crystal Gale record. But Chaz, give us your thoughts, in terms of the era that you grew up in and how it compares to now and where we're going. Are those days ever, are they gone?
I think they're gone. Like, as Paul would say, we never got to football. you could say what you want and sing what you want, and there was never any hassle or, do you know what I mean? It was football and that was it, like, you know?
Yeah.
But now it's just too many rules, there's too many PC people out there who's, you can't sing that, you can't sing that, and, do you know what I mean? These are the people that would have been singing it like 20 years ago or 15 years ago. Now they think they have to do the right thing all the time, and, do you know what I mean? It's just getting a bit farcical.
Yeah.
Especially the treatment with the Green Brigade and all that, the lads that are getting followed by the police and filmed, and, do you know what I mean? You never see that anywhere else in any other game, like, you know what I mean? Any sport.
Yeah, and any other country, even you know, just keeping it with football. I mean, you go to Germany, and you know it's 80,000 just hysterical Germans drinking giant steins of unbelievably strong beer, jumping around, and you know there's no required seating, you know, and it's fine. It's £10 a ticket, and they fill it up every week. You know, we have a comment in the chat room from Jerry McMahon who's asking. He wants to ask Paul, you know, can we get to a place where we can fill Celtic Park every week again? And what I want to know from both of you, Paul first, how much does this issue play into it? How much is this sterilized environment sort of, you know, pushing people away? You know, that might have been the fervent supporter in the past.
There is a big problem with the police. I mean, the police get involved in everything and make things worse. I mean, that's simple as that. I remember the last sort of time this was kind of going on was about 1982 when what the establishment would call the Falklands War was going on, what I would call the illegal occupation of Las Islas Malvinas, where Celtic fans would religiously wear Argentina strips to the jungle and chant Argentina and all that. And when the police steamed in, they got fired. That's what happened. You know, and I'm sorry if that offends people, whatever, but that's what happened. People in the jungle knocked hell out the police. And they stopped coming into the jungle and try to arrest people for wearing an Argentina top. So difference is now we have police all over the stadium, we've got bloody control rooms, we've got the harassment of the Green Brigade, we've got stewards getting 30 quid an hour to just make everybody's life a misery. It's completely different. It's a completely different context.
When you have cameras, you know, where if nothing's going to be done on the day, you know, somebody chaps your door 3 days later saying, "Is this you? Right, you're coming with us."
Yeah, because I mean, I read a couple of weeks ago. This kind of ex-gangster was saying that you know, he gets caught by the police one day, and he'd say, "You were at this place at this time," and he was like, "No, I wasn't." And he showed him a photograph that had been taken by a satellite up in space. And he was like, when they're taking photos of you for the moon, you know the game's over.
Yeah.
You know, and so with the Green Brigade, you know, who, as far as I can see, haven't actually doing anything wrong, you know. And, you know, people say, oh, what about this, what about that? It's like every group in the world's got bampots in it, or guys you don't like or whatever. I mean, I'm sure Chaz will verify that, but it's just one of the things. It's whether you think, right, okay, let's just get offended by everything they do, every breath they take, and all that kind of thing. I mean, I'll tell you a quick one before Chaz comes in. I spoke to a Hearts supporter last week whose daughter's a Celtic supporter, and he took her to the Celtic Hearts game last week. This guy's an absolute die-hard jambo. And he was like, he's telling me the story, and he's like, I'm sitting there, and I'm in the Celtic end saying nothing, and the next thing, all these banners, anti-Hearts banners start. And he just took that as, Jesus Christ, that sums up my luck. No only am I in the Celtic end, I've got to put up with this. He said he thought it was hilarious. Yet there were people on Twitter saying, oh, that was a disgrace, and, you know, Celtic supporters, so... Yeah. You know, we will be able to fill Celtic Park one day because football will be a corporate sport forever. It will go back again.
Exactly. Well, that was you just answered another question that I had. I'll open up. We'll get to that in a sec. Chaz, let me get your thoughts on this. I mean, do you feel and you know from your mates back in Glasgow? I mean, is there an element with some of the supporters where it's like, right, I can't be bothered going out to the park where you know you get just pulled for the slightest thing? I mean, is that driving people away?
I don't think it is as much like that. Do you know what I mean? They're not going for the fear of it. Like a lot of it has got to do with money and you know, the games after games, and you know, some people are picking and choosing their games over it. I don't think it's a fear because most of them just like it is what it is. You know, the cops getting in your face. Well, there's nothing you can do about it. It could happen in Argyle Street. It could happen in the Gallagher. Like, do you know what I mean? They've got it in for you if you're wearing green and white that night. They're going to do it anywhere.
Yeah.
I think it's the cops that's kind of pulling people away from the game, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I take that point. And Paul, I want to follow up on this because this is a thought that's been stirring in my head. You know, where you see the pendulum swing back and forth in all sorts of aspects of life. You know, you got the sort of economic prosperity. You know, it goes from one end to the other. Politics goes from one end to the other. Do you suspect? I mean, you know, maybe the days gone by, maybe they're gone. But do you suspect that this sort of police state, this nanny state, this sort of video camera vigilance rather, and social media sort of working against us? Do you see that pendulum coming back the other way? I mean, at a certain point, if football becomes completely soulless and without any sort of depth, I mean, it needs to it needs to correct itself in order to continue. And football is not going to stop. At some point, it's going to correct itself. Do you see the pendulum swinging back? Where maybe things become more authentic at some point in the future?
Well, there's a chance because we have a referendum coming in Scotland in October 14, which at the minute we're getting bogged down in. What should the question be? This kind of nonsense and stuff like that. I'm not a patriot in the sense of William Wallace and all that crap, because William Wallace was a landowner that never wore a kilt in his bloody life. No Mel Gibson's version. So it's about what Scotland's going to be like as an independent country for me. Does it mean that our pensioners will be looked after for our poor and our disabled people? Does it mean that bus fares and transport fares, public transport will come down? Does it mean there's going to be more jobs? And does it mean the harassment of people like us and stuff like that is going to stop? That's the independent Scotland I want to argue about. And so that is a real chance, because I blogged about it last week. Things are changing in Scotland. The identity of Celtic's changing. We've established the strong Irish roots of the club and the rebel spirit put in there by people like Davitt and stuff like that. But there's a Scottishness coming through as well that we've taken ownership of, And whether you like it or no, the Huns are absolutely obsessed with Peter Lawwell thinking they run the SFA. Now you see our ex-manager running the Scotland football team. And these are things that just get under their skin. And I know some people can give a toss about the international team. I probably couldn't either.
Yeah.
But just look at it for their context. Or Strachan and Matt McGee, things like that. We've got a chance to take ownership of this as Scotland's biggest and most successful club. And our identity will always be shaped by the fact that I think with people like us, we didn't feel 100% Scottish, we didn't feel 100% Irish. We're a kind of mix, and Celtic Park is our kind of mecca with that, and that's where we feel the most comfortable. And, certainly a lot of people in Scotland absolutely despise that. They despise the fact that we didn't feel like that. So, I think that we can, and I think that, I've met people in the Green Brigade. There's one's a great friend of mine, comes to all the book launches and all that kind of thing, and he is an intelligent, articulate guy. He's not a daft boy jumping about daft. And if people like him are running the Green Brigade, you better believe they'll take Celtic back for the suits.
Yeah, no question. We're talking to Paul Larkin, the green and white writer, author of the forthcoming book, The Last Pearl Diver. You've had some confusion about the context there, maybe some people not picking up on the Scottish rhyming slang. Give us
it's a double meaning. It means pearl diving and a pearl diver being a fiver.
Right. And just talking about that in the context of Celtic being down to their last fiver, 5 minutes to midnight. I mean, literally. When Fergus showed up and the context and the color behind it, from what I've read, so I've just really dug into it from what you've sent over to me, and I'm really enjoying it. Like I said before, from the context of making it really appreciate where we are now. In addition to, it's one thing to understand the facts and what went on and all that, but it's a completely different thing to put yourself in the shoes of a character that lived through that. What they were breathing, what they were smelling, what they were having to deal with on a day-to-day basis. What their dad was saying to them, what their friends were how they were interacting, and it's just a struggle that time period, and I again it's a departure from what you've done in the past. It's not complete fiction like you said, but I'm enjoying it. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be available on April 1st.
Yeah, that's your birthday.
Perfect. Okay, and then the book launch. Where is it going to be?
It's going to be in the Celtic Supporters Association again. It's going to be the 6th of April, Saturday. Now, there was a bit of panic. What if the Hibs game is moved to the early kick-off and people turn up? Well, can I assure people that's not going to happen, because the early game's Hearts Ross County that day. And even if the Hibs game gets moved to the Sunday, who cares? We'll still be having a book launch on the Saturday night. Probably be better and easier for folk. It's going to be a bit of a 90s vibe to it to begin with. I'm going to be doing a reading for the book, which is the first time I've ever done that, a book launch. I'm going to be telling stories about what inspired me, the people inspired me. Because I needed an ending. When the last book launch was on the go, and somebody done something that night at that book launch that inspired the ending, and I've kind of teased them a bit with it so far, and they didn't actually know what it is, but I'll be revealing that. And just talking about and telling stories for that era and what it was like, because I used to go to my local pub at that time, we used to Falkirk in the Scottish Cup in '93, and I'd still go in the Celtic Trophy and be ridiculed by, the Huns who were riding the festive wave at that time and sniggering in the pub and all that kind of thing. And it's good for me to know now that when I think about the 4 or 5 people, 2 of them are dead, 2 of them didn't go, and 1 of them supports Hearts now.
Wow.
So we outlived them all.
Yeah. It's fantastic. So I'm looking forward to the book coming out. Yeah, I would love to be at the book launch. Maybe we'll have to work something out with that as well.
Well, you're a millionaire. You can just come.
Oh yeah. I'll just guess up the plane, right? Yeah, I'll use the spare plane that Norwich has flying around Prestwick at the moment. We're also joined by Chaz Duffy. Thank you so much for joining us, Chaz, president of the Bronx Boys CSC, my favorite Celtic supporters club that I've ever been to. It's phenomenal. If you're ever in New York, check it out. It's up in the Bronx. Absolutely superb, the atmosphere, and just top notch all the way. Let's talk about me now.
No.
Obviously, like you said, I'm a millionaire. I'm coming to Scotland for the first time ever.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna stick through it, having to fly on the rickety plane, and then once I get to Newark, it's smooth sailing from there. I can get on a jet. That's no problem. There's plenty of whiskey that I can drink that is gonna make that okay. I don't think there's enough whiskey that's gonna make that first leg okay. But what's on the agenda? I mean, obviously we're going to the event this time, which I'm if there were any other situation, I would never get on one of those tiny little planes. I can't wait to go, and it's one of those things where I can't even imagine, like some events or activities that you're about to do. You can imagine, you can sort of picture what it's going to be like. I can't even picture it. It's just beyond what I can think of.
For you.
I mean, I've thought about this for so long. And I've put it off. Like, all right, I don't have the money right now. I don't have the vacation right now. The football's kind of crap right now anyway. And then it's just one of those things that just gets pushed off. And now it's finally here. And it's almost like it's surreal. Like, is this really happening? And I don't know what to expect either, because there's a bit of a cultural, I mean, there's a difference in culture. I mean, let's be honest. Both of you have lived in the United States and you're from Scotland, so you know the differences there. But it's a bit different for me, where when I travel internationally, you have a certain level of like a respectful sort of just sort of feel your way into it. You don't want to go in guns ablaze not really knowing what the customs are and everything. But it's a bit different for me because I know so many people that are Scottish, and I've heard so many stories, and I've heard the scenes and the atmosphere described so many times. I feel like I've been there, so it's almost like, right, I'm going into a situation where I'm not really fully bedded in with the culture, but on the same token, I feel a connection, so it's almost like surreal in a way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Chaz will back me up here. I think the worst thing you can do is assume that everything will be the same. Because you do that when you go to America, and then you realise there's so many things that are different. You go, well, wait a minute, they all look the same and talk the same, and then you say, right, that's where the similarity ends.
Yeah.
But it's I think you'll probably, the pictures in your mind will become reality, obviously, and because obviously it's about the games especially, but there's other things that planned, like to see the grave of John Thompson. Definitely. And see the plaque for James Conley, and meet up with some people on the Saturday night and things like that, and just kind of, I'll give you the freedom to kind of soak it all in, because, I remember still to this day, the first time I went to Celtic Park, and it's, that feeling of going to the football when you're young, is a feeling that I've never been able to find again.
Yeah.
Whether it's drugs, sex, anything, I've never felt anything that's ever came close to that, so, I would never underestimate how big a deal this is for you,
Chaz, you have any advice?
I just stick by Paul. He'll keep it right.
Yeah, that goes without saying.
I'm excited for you, Graham. I'd love to be a fly in the wall. I'd love to be sitting next to you in that plane and just laughing my ass off all the way over.
I know. People who've traveled with me, they're like, you're a mess.
I honestly think you're going to have the best holiday of life, and say Paul will be taking care of you over there, and we should have a Twitter. We want to meet up with your daughter, you one of the two, and I hear there's a cash and carry Starbar lunch on the menu there as well from the Parrot, and it's just, but honestly, you'll just have the best time, and you're in good hands. I remember Paul look after you, and the rest of the lads are off.
Yeah, Paul, thank you so much for offering to take me in and sort of look
Don't
after
thank
me.
me yet. You've not seen the rent.
Right, we'll pick that up. We'll pick that up in about a fortnight then.
I'm kidding, of course. Sex appeals are always good.
I figured as much, with the precedent we set, or at least what you like to lead on in your books and so on.
Yeah.
Chaz, how are you feeling about this Juventus tie?
I feel good. I honestly think over the 2 legs that we're going to go through.
I think so too.
Last week was a sickener. The result and just the effect that has now on our Paddy's Day. We were home to the Ryan's band on the day after Paddy's Day up there, in the bar, and it's going to be obviously the first trophy of the year, and it's just a pure sickener.
Yeah.
And then you onto the day, nice result of the day, and just hopefully just picks up, and I can see he's getting I can hopefully see he's been through Juventus,
Yeah, and then do they don't have another draw after that? The draw is pretty much set from here on in, right? So I think the next, if and when we get past Juventus, it'd be like Trabzonspor or Schalke.
I think we could be going to Wembley. You just had that feeling in the 125th year and everything's going to go well, and what happened with Sevco and all that, and you're just like, this is a momentous year, and you just think it's like Seville. As you were taking the game and just like the results were coming, and then you're like that, you're going to the cup final, and I honestly think that there's a chance we could be going to Wembley the 25th of May.
I think you're right. It would be just pure magic. I mean,
yeah, absolutely.
And we've got 2 good omens there. Kev's gone over for the Juventus game as well, and Graham, so that's 2 good omens. They always bring us a bit of luck when they come up,
That's it. Well, if we go through like 4-0 or something, I'm not going to be allowed to leave, I think, which might not be the worst thing, but
I think it's good as well. He touched on Sevco. I think at the start of the week I was thinking, Christ, if Sevco go past Dundee United, then you're never going to hear the end of it. Beating an SPL team that hate us and all this crap, and then they go shun on us again and put a proper management team in place, and give them gone in 15 seconds.
Yeah, I figured.
Actually, I was kind of probably torturing Mr. Donnelly about impressing on him how important it was for them to win and stuff like that. And there was a bit at the end of the game where there was a wee sort of conflict between him and McCoist, and it was very similar to sort of Lennon and McCoist without the argy-bargy. And I asked him last night, I said, what did you say to him then? I said, you're going to keep it secret? He says, no, I just asked him if we could play them every week. So they were absolutely over the moon, and I think if you look at the reaction of they two yesterday on the sideline, they knew how much it meant. They knew how much it meant. They knew as 2 ex-Celtic men they had to go and do the damage for us, and they really did. Kind of great for us, and as I say, I'm sure everybody will wish them all the best, apart from in 2 weeks' time when they annihilate them at Celtic Park.
Exactly right. Yeah, and I figured that you had an opinion on that, considering your relationship with Jackie and Simon.
Well, it was, you have to understand. Like, I actually knew that Jackie had done the interview on the Sunday, but it was absolutely sworn to secrecy. And you have to understand, they've only actually managed Partick Thistle for 75 games. So that's the first job of management. Now all of a sudden they're now, if you let anybody's ever beat Firhill, it's a dilapidated stadium, and the dressing rooms and all that are really falling to pieces. Now all of a sudden they're at Dundee United, an SPL club, and everything's different. They've got their own training ground, but previously they trained basically in a kind of council 5-a-side pitch. And Jackie, I always say Jackie, people see him getting interviewed and they say, oh, he's very withdrawn, he's very deep. He's complete opposite of that in real life. He's really one of the boys. And they are a bit sort of bewildered by the fact that Christ, here we are in the SPL and we're beating Sevco, and we've got a Dundee derby in the next round of the cup, we've got a Dundee derby in the same week, I think, as well.
Yeah.
So the realisation that they're kind of stepping up, and there was a kind of, I didn't want to sort of rain on a parade, but I just said, a couple of years down the line, you do well, and things change to sell it, you could be heading, so it's good that I don't think you'll ever hear anybody have a bad word to say about any of the 2 of them, and it'll be good to see them take success, because when they went into Tannadice, the first thing they said to the players there was, you've underachieved. with the talent at this disposal, you should be at least second in the league and going for the Scottish Cup. So that's their aim, and I'm sure everybody will listen well.
Well, it seems as though the message had an impact. 15 seconds in, and Johnny Russell, a fellow Celtic supporter, just put it a goal to the good. I mean, it's just like when I saw the time frame that was dealing. I mean, it was just like you couldn't help but smile. Right, he's arrived. So it's gonna be interesting, to see what happens in the summer window, and obviously follow the progress from Simon and Jackie. But very good to see, like you said, knocking Sevco out, and onwards and upwards for us. We have St. Mirren away, and the comments, like I said before, from Neil Lennon right after the game, I loved it. When they asked him, the draw hadn't been made yet, and they asked him who he would want. He said St. Mirren home or away. So he's looking to set things right, and he'll have the opportunity. So.
As long as it's not Hampden.
And as long as there's no penalties. Guys, thank you so much for joining us. We'll wrap it up. We're right at 120 minutes, so I guess today we're the 120-minute Cynic. We went to extra time and no penalties. But you can follow Paul Larkin on Twitter at PaulLarkin74. Get all of the information in the run-in to the next Bandpop book launch. If you missed the last one, you heard all about it, you've got to go. Get in touch, follow it, make sure that you're there this time at the Celtic Supporters Association. Chas Duffy, president of the Bronx Boys CSC. If you're ever in New York, you got to check them out. My favorite Celtic Supporters Club. I got to get back up there, Chas.
Yeah, you do. You definitely do, Graham. And we missed the Rev nodding today as well. I was hoping I could catch one of Rev's nods today. But Graham, I just wanted to actually say to Paul, best of luck with the book launch, and everything goes well for you. I'm sure it will with MC Parrot and all that.
Despite the Parrot, I'm sure it'll be a success.
There'll be no push staying hands at this one, hopefully.
Oh God, no. I think that Boofy was definitely the last supper. I'll get another one, I can assure you.
All the best for that, Paul, and hope that was going well in your life over there. And Graham, I just can't wait to be reading your tweets and following you when you're going over there to Juventus. And hopefully you'll meet up with Kevin, a few of the boys, and that when you're over there. And you get back safe, and the flight's not too bad, and you're alright.
Cheers, pal. Really appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Alright, lads. All the best. Hail.
Paul?
Graham?
Thank you again for joining us. As always, it's always great to catch up.
Kirkcaldy flu as well, so I hope you appreciate the sacrifice.
Well, I thought I skirted the flu myself. I came down with a cold or something last week, and now I'm doing okay. So I'll make sure I pack plenty of drugs and stuff that would help out with the symptoms, I guess. That's gives another reason for the Strathclyde police not to let me off the plane.
Yeah, it's one of the ones where you go over to somewhere like Kirkcaldy, which isn't far from you at all. It's about half an hour's drive away. And you're there and it's freezing cold. You say this is what it's all about. All these idiots sitting in the house watching the telly, and you come back with a flu and a fever. You think, oh God, I'm too old for this. It's just why did I just watching the telly? But he who dares.
That's not going to stop you. You'll be back.
I'll be happy to spend all your money at the next couple of games.
Fantastic.
All right.
That sounds good to me as well. So. Gosh, I can't believe it. It's almost a week, and I'll be seeing you Monday morning. So,
indeed.
Take care of yourself in the meantime.
By the way, what are you getting picked up at Heathrow Airport by Gaffer?
No, I'm flying into Glasgow.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
For all the times he annoys us.
Flying into Heathrow, and make sure the Gaffer has a black car waiting for me for the drive.
I mean, he's obviously been, it's been a horrific time for him with his kind of huge football injury and stuff like that, So
well, especially with his burgeoning financial career, he's the entrepreneur. He's the Charles Schwab of Bonus, So
yes, absolutely. I mean, daily phone calls to Warren Buffett, touching into Bill Gates and being a bit of a philanthropist. We will soon be talking at great length about the Gaffer.
Yeah, next thing you know, he's going to buy Sevco.
Well, I'll tell you one thing Sevco's done for us is they've pushed our share issue price up big time.
That's true. Looks a very good investment.
Enough of that nonsense.
Absolutely. Paul, all the best. Take care of yourself. Thank you so much for coming on in spite of being sick, and I'll talk to you soon, pal.
Hey, brother. Cheers.
Cheers. Right, so that's it. 124 minutes, so we went to extra time. We had an injury in the middle. I'm sort of out of sorts, I guess, because I'm I'm nervous. This week's going to be absolutely brutal. But we'll get through it. And I'll get through the plane ride, and I'll be there before I know it. So we'll probably do one more show next Saturday after the Cali game, and that'll be sort of the lead into coming over. So if anybody has any suggestions and any sort of moral support that you can lend me about flying and anything like that, or if you just want to wind me up with plane crash videos too, it's always good for a laugh. So yeah, hope you enjoyed the show today. It's always nice to get a result, I think. So onward in the cup, and we have Cali next Saturday. Fingers crossed everybody gets through it with good form, no injuries, and bring on Juventus. So for Paul Larkin, who joined us today, and you can find him at Paul Larkin74 on Twitter. If you're not following him, sort that out. And Chaz Duffy, you can find them on Twitter at BronxBoy. I'm Graham Wilson. Thank you for listening. Taking us out as always is Shane McGowan and the Pokes. Hail, hail, and keep the faith. We'll talk to you soon.
The island, it is silent now, but the ghosts still haunt the waves. And a torch lights up a famished man who fortune could not save. Did you work upon the railroads? Did you ride the streets of crime? Were your dollars from the White House? Were they from the 5 and dime? Did the old songs talk to cheer you, and did they still make you cry? Did you count the months and years, or did your teardrops quickly dry? I know that it was not to be on a cabin ship. I came here and I never even got so far that they could change my name. Thousands are sailing across the western ocean to a land of opportunity that some of them will never see. Fortune prevailing across the western ocean, their bellies full, their spirits free. They'll break the chains of poverty and they'll dance. In Manhattan's desert twilight, in the dead of afternoon, we stepped hand in hand on Broadway, like the first man on the moon. And a blackbird broke the silence as you whistled, it's so sweet. And then Brendan Behan's footsteps, I danced up and down the street. And we said goodnight to Broadway, giving it our best regards. Took our hats to Mr. Cohen, dear old Times Square's favorite bird. Then we raised a glass to JFK and a dozen more besides. When I got back to my empty room, I suppose I must have cried. Thousands are sailing again across the ocean with a hand of opportunity. Just tickets